Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. Diplomacy, the game that's lasted throughout the ages. Not only does it test your diplomatic skills across the table, it also tests the very limits of your actual friendships. Fists have been thrown because of this game throughout the world. Now, the thing is, does Columbia Games have a take on this classic game? The answer is yes. Yes, Tom Dalgleish is a big fan of the game, but he wanted to put a Columbia Games spin on it. So today, I'm going to be going over with you the first look at Alliance. So here we have the map of Alliance, and no surprise, it's a beautiful map because it was made by Tom Dalgleish. And the guy just has a gift for making beautiful maps, okay? And that doesn't matter if it's a wargaming map or a fantasy RPG map, even though there are two different directions you have to go with each genre. For fantasy maps, you can get as detailed as you want depending on the map, but you can get as detailed as you want and it won't matter. It won't ruin anything because the game masters just get creative with all that stuff, all that information. Okay, while with wargaming, you have to be much more careful. There's got to be a balance. You put too much stuff on there, and there's stuff that doesn't matter. It's just fluff. It has nothing to do with gaming terms, or like in this game, borders and stuff like that. The different borders denote how many units can go across it, which is a big important thing. But you don't want to clutter that information with all this gobbledygook, as pretty as it might look. Okay, of course, you put too little on there, and even if you're trying to be artistic, which was the problem at first with the new Rumble in the Desert, which they really had to make sure that all the hex sides were definitely defined more because it was too artistic for its own good at first. Ended up beautiful. Check the link down below and watch that video. Now, this game is made from anywhere, and dig this, 1 to 6 players. That's right, you can play this game solo. I don't have a lot of information on that just yet, but we're trying to make our game solo because, I mean, the demand for solo games is exponential as of late. I mean, everybody's trying to play one of these. They want to be able to play a game and not, if they can't get 3 to 6 players, they want to play it by themselves. Now, how can you do that diplomacy-wise? Well, I guess we'll find that out as they make it, but they are definitely doing it. Now, the game's default is at 3 players, okay? But that, anywhere from 3 to 6 is really where the fun is in this one. So what is it about Alliance that sticks it apart from diplomacy? The Columbia block system is not going to be the only thing that seems familiar to many fans out there. Anybody who's played Julius Caesar is going to also see that the cards are very familiar. It's using the same move and levy system. So basically, every card that you get has a number of moves that you can do to maneuver and attack, and of course it has a number of levies that you get to bolster your forces or build new units. All right, so at the beginning of the turn, you get a dealt number of cards, you discard one you don't like, and you use the rest to play out the turns for the entire year up until the wintering turn where all the diplomacy happens. Now, it should be no surprise that we're using the Columbia block system for this game. That is, of course, the point, right? And it does make things differ than diplomacy. For instance, diplomacy, you plot out your movement of all your forces, whether attacking, defending, or staying at home. Everybody else does the same thing. Then you all resolve it. And just by simple math, you could see, okay, there's these units here, they outnumber, they win. Okay, it's very cut and dry. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is cut and dry. Here, you're going to get something new. You're going to get something a little bit more granular. And what do I mean by that? Well, in Columbia Block War Games, you know already that you have to surround a person usually, or an area, to be able to take it over. And even then, it's going to take more than 1 year turn. Every turn is a year to do it. More than one combat. Okay? And so what happens with that? Well, at the end of every year, there is also a coalition, a time for coalitions. That's when you're doing your diplomacy with everybody at the end of every year. So, you're taking over, and now this guy might make more demands. That's your ally. The defender might make better concessions to this person over here. You're in the middle of a campaign. You can do that. That's something you couldn't do with diplomacy in the same way. Now, one of the things I like about Alliance is not only do you have your diplomatic hat on, but you have to put on your general helmet on too at times, okay? There's a small gradual learning curve that happens in the game. It's not overwhelming at all. It's just you'll learn little things as you go, and it usually has to do with border limits and knowing how to surround a country and make an attack on certain countries. And you'll get better playing a certain player because you have experience playing. Okay, I know what I got to do in that country. I don't have enough forces here, and you get to learn that. And it has to do with border limits. Border limits basically is no matter how many forces you have in your country, you can only, unlike Risk, where you can just go, this limits the amount that you can put over. On a clear border, you can put 4 units across, 4 blocks. A forest, only 3. A mountain, only 2. And of course, a marsh, only 1. You have to pay attention to that. As I mentioned, you really want to surround somebody and get as many blocks in to attack because it's tough to make a complete attack. The defender has a distinct advantage, and you want to make sure of that. So after 5 cards have been played, the wintering turn happens, and this is where the namesake of the game comes into play. This is where your alliances come in, your coalitions with the other players. All right, so when you're making a coalition, they can only be made or broken during the wintering turn. So when you make that alliance, basically you're locked in for at least 1 year, and you renegotiate every year and just renew your contract, as it were. So what's that entail? Well, basically it means it's a non-aggression pact. You can't attack each other. The second thing is basically you can move freely throughout each other's territories, even landing on the same space. And you can use your forces to help reinforce their attacks as well. And third, you can, before a new turn begins, you can trade cards with your ally on a 1-for-1 basis. Now, if other people want to join your alliance later, they can, but everybody in the current coalition has to agree to it. Of course, there's no limit to the number of deals that you can make in this game. I mean, basically, you could say, don't cross the North Sea for 5 years, or give me tribute of 1 gold every year so I don't attack you, etc., etc. You've probably seen things like that in diplomacy. For me, my diplomacy back when I was in the Navy as a young lad was a game called Supremacy. A little bit more beer and pretzels than diplomacy, I would say. But at the same time, it certainly wasn't Risk. It was Risk with nukes. And a lot of things going on. As a matter of fact, they had a treaty book, which I really liked, which you can go through and they had non-aggression pacts and even things like don't cross this water line and everything. It was a very intense game. But there was also a lot of stab your buddy in the back type things. You didn't have to honor anything. Now, by default, alliances forces you to honor your, at least for the coalition's part of it, honor that for at least a year. Now, breaking ties with that could be considered stabbing somebody in the back if you leave at an unopportune moment or something like that. So that's probably more accurate of how things can go with that. But if that's up to you and your gaming group, by all means, we're going to definitely, I predict there's going to be a lot of people making their own diplomatic rules about how far cutthroat they want to go. Or do you want to make a game where every diplomatic agreement is honored or you get penalized heavily? I see a lot of that going on, but we'll see more about this as Tom refines it more. But as of right now, it looks like it's a really exciting game. Guys, hit the link down below and get to the MailChimp so we can send you out a notification as soon as this hits Kickstarter. Of course, I'm going to be spreading the word when that happens too. And that's the video, and I'll see you next time.